Hello and welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried. That's Mike Luciano. We're going to talk about the Jets. I don't want to. I really don't. I don't care. I honestly don't care. Trevor Siemian played today. That's cool, man. I'm happy that happened. Jets lost 13-8. Not much else to say. Mike, how you doing today, buddy? What's going on?
We try so hard to analyze and give you takes and do all this. How can you have a take about this game? Because I'm not even kidding. This is probably what? How many games they played here? This is now 12?
Yeah.
This exact script has happened in 6 of them?
Yeah, pretty much.
Every time it just gets worse. This time it was the worst because I think maybe the Raiders was the worst prime time, but Atlanta, first in the division, that is such a beatable opponent. And the defense, oh my God, with
They're
all
great.
the penalties. And look, I don't want to say, the ref officiating. Both sides, horribly officiated game. Horribly officiated game. Falcons fans are just as mad as Jets fans. They have every right to be. Yep. Horribly officiated game. Even with all the penalties on that defense, 13 points, and I think 2 of their scoring drives were short field ones. Like the touchdown throw that Ritter had, one of the field goals. I mean, you can't say enough good things about this defense.
No, you can't.
And yet here we are talking about another Jets loss. I mean, I guess we'll talk some quarterbacks. But first, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever it may be you get your podcasts. We're on all those sites. YouTube and TikTok at the Jet Press for both of them. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give the stream a like, too, if you like the stream. Make sure to also leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, just because it helps us get up the review charts. It's not for ego reasons, we swear. And Justin, I guess we could talk about the quarterbacks in sort of a chronological matter, kind of how this game went down. Because actually, I don't know if this take will get me banned from Jets Twitter or not, but I legitimately, no joke, thought in the first half specifically, Nathaniel Hackett called a very good game.
Yeah,
I thought there were receivers. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or like a Jets guy here. Garrett Wilson literally is open 85% of the time.
Yep.
And they're doubling him and they're bracketing him and AJ Terrell, and they still could not stop him from getting open. And yet, you would think, maybe I'm a dumb guy here, maybe I'm a dummy. You would think that with a quarterback who obviously stinks, you would think, all right, if your first guy's open, look for Garrett Wilson or have Garrett be the first guy every time. I've never seen a guy be this consistently open in a game for an entire game and have nobody throw to him this much. It was shocking. It was mind-boggling. And then he finally does throw it to him. Boyle does in the third quarter. It's this floaty under-air thing. I mean, you talk about some quarterbacks don't know when to have touch. Tim Boyle has too much touch. I feel like he never throws the ball hard. Everything floats up there. I think at least we've been saying Tim Boyle is not an NFL quarterback. I mean, this confirms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we always talk about how we hate how the Jets say, well, we just got to execute better. Legitimately, this time they had to execute better because guys were actually open against a beatable Falcons team and just over and over and over and over and over again. Tim Boyle just misses him. They bring Siemian in, thank God, finally. Now, granted, he didn't play particularly well, but also coming off the bench against actually a defense that, I actually do like a lot of their personnel. With Grady Jarrett, I think they would have been better. But Atlanta is definitely not an also-ran defense. They have guys there. Jesse Bates, as he's shown, is extremely good. And then he didn't do much of anything. A tough situation. This is the bottom of the barrel. This is rock bottom.
Is it?
We've seen a lot of bad quarterbacks here, ladies and gentlemen. Tim Boyle, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here because we're on a stream and all that. He might be the worst. I think he's the worst.
If you're saying rock bottom is Tim Boyle at quarterback, that I might agree with. I am not sure I've seen a quarterback start a game for the Jets in my lifetime who is worse than Tim Boyle. I think he's worse than Bryce Petty. Petty was probably the worst before that. Obviously, Christian Hackenberg would never even play in the game, so he probably was worse. But
Petty had a better arm by a lot than Tim Boyle.
And the thing with Boyle, I feel like Boyle has a strong arm. That doesn't mean he has arm talent, but he has a strong arm. He can chuck that thing, but he just refuses to do it. He's Derek Carr on steroids. He's like Derek Carr times 1,000 with the checkdowns. He just refuses to throw it down the field. He refuses to take any shots. And I agree with you, Mike. I think Nathaniel Hackett was fine in this game. Like, it's not going to change my overall opinion on him as an offensive coordinator or as a play caller. I don't think he is a good or competent offensive play caller, but there were so many plays where Garrett Wilson was streaking wide open, we're talking, especially when AJ Terrell, who is one of the better cornerbacks in football, went out with the injury, and he was getting open almost every play. And I don't know how much of that was Hackett, how much of it was just Garrett Wilson being Garrett Wilson, but they just didn't throw to him. Like, and by they, I mean Tim Boyle just was not throwing to him, was not taking the shots. He's bad. Like, he's awful. He's unplayable. We don't need to analyze Tim Boyle. He's not an NFL caliber quarterback. He should not even be the backup next week. Moving forward, if we're going to talk about what Trevor Siemian, like right now, I would like Trevor Siemian to be the starting quarterback next week. Give him a chance. I think he deserves it based on his track record alone. I don't think he was particularly good in this game, but I also think that he was put in a poor situation, just like Zach Wilson has been for weeks. And look, if Zach Wilson can get a million excuses for why he played poorly, maybe Trevor Siemian can get one. That's all I'm saying. Maybe the Zach Wilson fans out there can give Trevor Siemian one excuse, that he was put in behind an O-line that forgot how to play football in the fourth quarter, specifically on that last drive. It was really, really bad. And considering the guy basically has had no reps all season, he hasn't played since the summer. He was given 1 week of backup quarterback reps. 1 week. So the guy hasn't even been playing in practice. He's been playing
a couple throws.
And he did make a couple of throws. Obviously, he was bad. He was trying to do too much. He looked skittish in the pocket. Like, he was bad. I'm not going to say that he played well at all, but I'd say maybe give him a shot to start a quarterback next week. That's what the Jets should do. I'd like to see Zach Wilson as your backup. Tim Boyle should not be anywhere near a football field. They're going to keep him on the roster because he's basically a QB coach. That's essentially what his job is on this roster. He should not have played 2 consecutive games. That should not have happened, but
I even doubt the quarterback coaching because, like, we'll get to some of your comments pretty soon, but
yes,
like, literally the entire reason that Tim Boyle is where he is, like, on a roster, because it's certainly not physical talent, it's not arm talent, it's not a pedigree, it's not just raw athleticism. Like, as a football player, there's nothing. So it has to be, he has to be just this savant, right?
Sure.
Who just understands football and gets it. He looks as bad reading the field as Wilson.
I know.
Like, it's one thing. Zach Wilson you remember in Madden when they had that vision cone and Peyton Manning could, like, see the whole field and Michael Vick can only see, like, one area of it, like one guy? That Zach Wilson has, like, a hair thin razor thin vision cone. Like, he just can't swivel his head around. Tim Boyle does. Like, there are times, like we say, he wasn't throwing to Garrett Wilson. He literally was looking at Garrett Wilson open, and he was throwing to Conklin, who was covered.
Yep.
So I don't even know if that's why he's there, because apparently if he's like the savant quarterback coach, that would tell you to get the ball out. And it just stinks too, because there's 2 extremes that the Jets have on the roster. There's the upside guy, Wilson, who's his lows are gonna be lower, but the highs will be higher, or the finished product, quote unquote, in Siemian, like who knows his offense, he can get the ball out quick, he's been around. And for weeks now, they've gone with the guy who does neither of that. Boyle.
You gain nothing from starting Tim Boyle. Like, he has no strengths. There are 0 strengths to his game.
He's got to be like the coolest guy ever to hang out with. Because I
guess,
geez.
I don't know. I mean, as Brian in chat said what he said. He said you could be Tim Boyle if you were friends with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, like Tim Boyle was a bad college quarterback. Not just bad, like really, really, really bad. Like a very, very bad college quarterback. Like, genuinely, probably. I mean, I think there were some stats on Twitter this week. I honestly forget because I don't care. But there were
just all blurs together in this miasma of random numbers.
I swear I saw some stats this week that showed how poorly Tim Boyle ranked amongst all quarterbacks to play in the FBS over the last 3 decades. He's one of the worst. And what, maybe like the top 2%, 1% of FBS quarterbacks even make it to the NFL to play in a game. Tim Boyle's probably in the 80th percentile of garbage. Like, he's playing in the NFL. How is that even possible?
Well, people go, well, he's Aaron Rodgers' friend. 3 other teams signed him. The Lions and the Bears didn't have Aaron Rodgers. I know Getsy, they had him there, but like a quarter of the league has said, we believe Tim Boyle is a valuable enough quarterback to have on our team. How? I
don't know, man. We got Ramon in chat, and I'm going to agree and disagree here. He said O-line was okay today. I actually agree for part of that. I don't think they were a problem for a significant portion of the game. They just kind of fell apart late. But he said the problem was Hackett. I don't think Hackett was the problem today. I do think overall Nathaniel Hackett is a significant problem. And if you had to rank the issues with the Jets offense, I would still probably start with Nathaniel Hackett, but they did not have a quarterback, and they still don't have a quarterback, and they won't have a quarterback for the remainder of the season. As much as we're screaming for Trevor Siemian, he's still not good. And neither of us have claimed he's good. Trevor Siemian, at what he has going for him, Trevor Siemian has a track record of at least being a competent NFL backup quarterback. That's his track record. Now, that track record wasn't this past year. It wasn't this past summer. It was at least a few years ago. So who knows if he is still that player. And also, he's in a horrific situation. But I would at least say give him a shot because he has that track record. Like you said, Mike, he's a proven commodity. Well, I don't even want to use the word reliable because he's not, but I don't think the lows will be quite as low as they are with Zach Wilson. So you at least have that going for you. So I'd give him a shot. But at this point, you're 4-8 anyway. Does it really matter who they play at quarterback? Does it really matter for the remaining 6 games of the season or 5 games of the season if they're starting Zach Wilson, if they're starting Trevor Siemian? Neither of them should be the backup quarterback next season either way. So I don't care. Like I genuinely don't care. I want a top 5 pick. That's what I want.
For now, the 3rd year in a row, the Jets are not going to have a quarterback throw 10 touchdown passes, 3rd year in a row. And the 3rd year in a row, they're going to have played 4 quarterbacks. So for all you Saleh guys, like, can Saleh actually, number 1, get a real quarterback, and number 2, get a real quarterback who plays for a little bit? Let's get to some comments really quick. Well, let's start back near the top. Tony Esposito, how about Breece's block on the second to last play? The team has no awareness or fundamentals. I love Breece, but his pass blocking is horrible. Breece has been awful.
Yeah, he's not great.
And you know what? I could see we were talking about Saleh with the whole grimy yards thing. I mean, earlier in the game, there was a 2nd and 1 right up the middle. He bounces it outside, loses 2 yards. Like I can see why that would piss guys off.
I immediately tweeted out after that play. I'm like, Saleh's about to bench Breece for that run. Like, I knew that's exactly what Saleh was talking about. And I get it. Again, Breece is pressing. He's trying to win the game every time he touches the ball. I understand that. But right now, Dalvin Cook looks like the best running back on the Jets roster, at least the last couple of weeks. And I've been a Dalvin hater since literally day one, even before he signed with the Jets. But I would say that he should. I don't know if he should be the primary running back, but I'm fine with a 50-50 split.
Because he fumbled today too, so he's not.
He did, and that's Dalvin. That's Dalvin. He's done that throughout his career. But at least you see the upside with him right now. At least he was making some stuff happen.
Ryan Gallagher, you say depressing new lows. If the Jets can't get lower, they will. Just wait. Oh, believe me, we know.
They probably will.
This ain't our first rodeo here.
I feel what makes this worse is it's not even like the offense is bad because of just ridiculous turnovers and hilarious. Like, they're just pathetic. They can't do anything. They're entirely incompetent. The Jets have still not scored a non-garbage time offensive touchdown since week 8. We're going into week 14. That's like a month and a half.
And we're further away from the answer of what the problem is, because everything's the problem.
I have zero confidence they could even come close to doing it next week. Like, the schedule doesn't get easier. They play the Texans and Dolphins in back-to-back weeks. This was their winnable game. I mean, sure, the Commanders in a few weeks on Christmas Eve.
And then they get Cleveland and New England, who are still – New England's defense has allowed 46 points in 4 games.
I'm about to be the biggest Patriots fan in that game, and I'm going to feel so dirty. I'm going to feel really dirty doing it, but I'm going to be rooting. Barring any miracles happening over the next couple of weeks, Jets fans will probably be rooting for the Patriots in that game, which unfortunately means the Jets will probably win.
Lane Brandon, we will see Zach Wilson back in next week. I mean, at this rate, it's open tryouts. It's literally open tryouts. They're just, can anything work?
I don't think they're going to go straight to Zach next week. I do think they'll give Siemian a chance. Saleh hasn't said anything yet, right? I don't think they're going to make a quarterback decision today. That would surprise me. I haven't seen any quotes, but I haven't been staring at my phone. But I don't think that they're going to make a quarterback decision today. I imagine we're going to find out probably tomorrow or something, or the next day. My guess is it'll be Siemian, and that's fine. I agree. I think it should be that, but I would not be surprised. Yeah, they said they won't say who the QB is. So Saleh has already said that they are not making that decision yet. As Robert Saleh said,
no,
we're not there yet, which is exactly what I thought the quote would be. But I think it wouldn't be surprising to me if we saw Wilson in a few weeks, because every time you think Zach Wilson's done, he finds a way back. Jaguars game last year, I thought that would be it for Zach Wilson. We got another, 9-10 starts out of him. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple more down the stretch, but it really doesn't matter.
Josh Kerr, Wilson can help us tank. So can the other guys.
They all can. I don't the Jets aren't trying to tank. They're not. They're just bad. And I don't know I don't know what games they can win over the final stretch of the season because I know for a while I've been saying that every game the Jets play is kind of a coin flip because you're hoping the defense can get takeaways and turnovers. The offense is worse than it's ever been. This is I don't even want to say this game, but the last couple weeks and this week included is the most pathetic that they've looked. I don't know how they can score points. I don't see it other than just throwing it to Garrett Wilson. This isn't an exaggeration. Give him 25 targets next week.
But we're not joking.
I'm not joking. You throw the ball 30 times, 25 of them should go to Garrett Wilson, 3 should go to Tyler Conklin, and you can give 2 to whoever. Xavier Gipson, honestly, shout out Xavier Gipson. 2 really, really nice catches today. So I want to see more of Xavier Gipson moving forward, but 25 targets Garrett Wilson next week. I'm dead serious.
Richard Meditz, get an offensive line. He did, and everybody got hurt. He did, and then everybody got hurt.
I don't even want to say he did because there were genuine question marks about the offensive line going into the season. And this is the product of an offensive line that was already, shaky to begin with. There were already some questions and then everyone got hurt.
Ed Gumbrecht with a really long comment I want to kind of get into a little bit because he's touched on a lot of points. So we're going to go piece by piece here. Management needs to be fired with staff. Give D coordinator, that's Ulbrich, the rest of the season. Well, that's not going to change anything right there. Yeah. And, give Ulbrich the rest of the season. Ulbrich is going to leave anyway. Saleh's going to leave anyway. The defense won't be as good. So good there. And then he also says, we'll just keep it off the screen right now, Ed, because it's a little.
I was going to have to sit up so that you can see my face.
A little obtrusive because of how long the comment is. But he also says Rodgers needs to play so we can see exactly how bad this mess is and to fix it in the offseason with new management. If you're a free agent, are you considering signing with Joe Douglas? And look, this debate's going to just rage on now just because there's really no other talking points right now. It's going to be Saleh Douglas. That's part of why we're so apathetic now is because we know that everybody's getting a mulligan and everybody's coming back. But again, staff needs to be fired. Number one, everybody loves the defense, right? Even the Saleh haters, they love the defense. The defense is not going to be as good if they fire Saleh, hire an offensive guy, and he brings in the defensive backs coach for the Seahawks or whoever to be the coordinator. Completely unproven, probably going to be another young guy. That's going to lead to some chaos. And it can change like that in 1 year, legitimately. You get the wrong coordinator, Hackett, Broncos, you literally can wreck a unit like that. So that's number one. Number two, Saleh, again, as we've said before, for 3 years has not had a single NFL court, maybe one. Flacco, probably.
I would say Flacco's an NFL caliber.
1.5, Mike White.
Mike White's an NFL caliber quarterback too, but he has not had a starting caliber quarterback. That's
exactly. So, can we get one of them too? And then number 3, Rodgers wants to come back. I think I'm at the point now because Ed, it seems like, wants to do it for evaluation purposes. We could see what is a fault of what's a structural fault and what's just Hackett or the quarterback situation. And but also, are you willing to risk Aaron Rodgers' Achilles again to find those answers out? I'm not.
I don't see what good firings. They're not obviously. First of all, they're not going to fire anyone midseason. They're probably not firing anybody after the season. I definitely don't see, even if that was a possibility, what good firing anybody besides Hackett. Firing Saleh midseason, I don't see what good that's going to do. It still seems to me that the team responds well to him. They play hard for him. They respect him. They like him. I don't think this. You could certainly pick certain things, and I've talked about it many times on the show about how I think the overall game plan of the coaching staff is far too conservative, and I think that's been an issue for Saleh throughout his entire career, throughout his entire head coaching career. That's probably because he has not had a good quarterback at all. But I do think that that's an issue. I don't think that's a reason to fire him. I think Joe Douglas absolutely deserves a lot more blame than Robert Saleh for this. If we're saying who deserves to get fired, I genuinely would not disagree if you said Joe Douglas deserves to get fired, because I don't think any team should have this level of incompetence should not be possible in the NFL. And that goes down to the guy who created this roster. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers going down sucks. Obviously, your entire offensive line getting injured, that sucks. But no offense should look this incompetent. And that goes to Joe Douglas. But will he be fired? And do I think he should be fired? No, because obviously you're running it back with the same regime and Aaron Rodgers next season. But if you're saying who deserves to be fired, Joe Douglas, you can absolutely make an argument for. I don't think Robert Saleh deserves to get fired, though. I don't want to say I think he's a good coach, but I think he absolutely deserves a chance with an actually competent quarterback and a maybe semi-competent offense, and he has not had that.
Because what's going to happen, right? They're going to do that. He's going to go take the Chargers job. He's going to get Herbert, and then he's going to look like a genius. Mm-hmm. You can tell that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have leverage. If they fired him, number one, he'd have a defensive coordinator job pretty much wherever he wants because he's proven that much. Or he could say, I'm just going to wait until I get a real quarterback, not Zach Wilson, like a real quarterback. We're not drafting a young guy. Give me a proven guy. Herbert's probably going to be that guy if the Chargers fire Staley, which it looks like they are probably going to. And he'd thrive there. You're telling me that Saleh wouldn't win with guys like that? You're telling me Saleh wouldn't be winning right now with Aaron Rodgers? Because this is another game with Aaron Rodgers that they would have won. 13 points. And again, like I know Ritter had that one actually really impressive throw to Michael Pruitt for the touchdown. It was actually like a really good throw. But other than that, Bijan Robinson did not have a very good game. That's a good Falcons offensive line. The Jets beat him up. Jermaine Johnson had a hell of a game. My goodness, what a game for him.
He's a star.
Ritter really couldn't get any sustained drives going. As we said, 2 of the 3 scoring ones where one was a Dalvin Cook fumble and there was like a long punt return. And like he never drove the length of the field and then like did a dagger touchdown on something like that. That didn't happen. Nope. Defense was amazing again.
Yeah. Falcons finished with 194 total yards. They averaged 3 yards per play, and they averaged 2.6 yards per rush. And that is one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL.
So obviously, let's see. New England, they would have won with Rodgers.
Yep.
Definitely. Raiders, they would have won with Rodgers. Definitely. Chargers, probably, but like that was a blowout. But like,
it's hard to say. Like
that one's tough. So like maybe. So definitely 2. Now 3, because they would have won this with Rodgers. That's 7 wins. You're in the wild card right now, man. So like that's the riddle. That's what I have a tough time wrapping my head around, is because we know if we get even everything the same, the injuries, the poor performance, everything, Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback right now has 3 extra wins and they're in the playoffs. So is that worth firing people over? Because if he didn't get hurt, 7 wins in the playoffs, nobody's even thinking of doing that. Robert Saleh's getting a statue built at this point because he's going to be close to ending the playoff curse. That's what I'm having trouble reconciling. It's like, all right, yeah, things are going bad. The roster sucks. Saleh is not a perfect coach, but he's made some questionable decisions. The quarterbacks are terrible. But literally, if a guy who didn't miss a start in 7 years didn't have his leg explode, none of this is happening. None of these discussions are even happening.
I want to get to a couple comments, and it's going to be both from Ed. So I don't want to, this is not picking on you, Ed. I just happen to disagree with 2 things you said. So this thing right here, he said, no, Aaron Rodgers cannot win with no wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 either.
Yeah, he did. He did all the time in Green Bay.
I don't know if the Jets, first of all, do you ever watch him in Green Bay? He did not have a wide receiver 2 or 3 for a lot of
Lazard.
Especially the latter half of his career in Green Bay. He did not have a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. That being said, I don't think the Jets win a Super Bowl if Aaron Rodgers is here, but you cannot say that this offense doesn't look significantly better with him. Obviously, quarterback is not the only issue. Daniel Hackett stinks. The offensive line stinks. Their wide receiver room stinks. 100% agree. I think specifically the running game is bad because the Jets probably have the worst run blocking O-line in football right now. I would be surprised if there was a worst run blocking offensive line out there. And again, a lot of that's injuries, but that is the case. But no, I refuse to believe that Aaron Rodgers would not be a significant upgrade for the Jets at this stage and that they would be winning more games with him. Secondly, you said penalties is coaching. No, this has always been one of my biggest gripes. There is no correlation year to year between teams that get penalized a lot and quote unquote good coaching. Now, that being said, I do think, and I said this before on the show, so long, listeners of the show who've tuned in a lot have probably heard me say this, but Robert Saleh, the way that he coaches his defense, he coaches them to play at 120% at all times, which that's why it's not surprising to me that the Jets end up getting more unnecessary roughness penalties, more roughing the passers, because when they're playing 120%, they're gonna make plays, they're gonna make stupid plays like that. That being said, I think that I'm fine with the trade-off because look at how great this Jets defense is. And a lot of that is because of the mindset that Saleh instills in his players. So I would say that, part of the defensive penalty issues I think are on Saleh, but no, I don't. If you're getting, Carter Warren false start, Joe Tippmann false start, Mekhi Becton false start. No, that's not Robert Saleh. Saleh has no control over that. That's the players messing up. Like that's what that is. If you want to blame any coach, blame Keith Carter, blame the offensive line coach, blame Nathaniel Hackett, blame the offensive coordinator. Saleh, what is Saleh supposed to do? Don't get a false start. What can he do in that situation?
What are Saleh and Hackett supposed to do? Physically go out there and quantum leap into Tim Boyle's body and make him throw it? Like there's only so much in the moment, some of these coaches can do.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea. Just a few more chats here. Steven, I know that's our resident UK viewer, so checking in from across the pond. Thankfully for
Dude,
you,
you got to get better things to do with your Sundays.
Thankfully, this was a 1:00 game, so that's better for you. It's better for all of us. You should be able to actually go to sleep and get.
Well, Steven could have done so many good things in the past 3 hours.
So could we, man. We all could have. We all could have.
We were forced to.
It's true.
O'Neal Grisham says, "Blow it up." You can't. You financially, you can't.
Yeah, I would blow. What do you mean by blow it? Like blow it up, fire everyone? Like is that the?
Get rid of Rodgers? You can't.
Get rid of Rodgers? Like you can't. The Jets can't blow it up. They don't. Obviously, I'm not saying they can't fire anybody, but one, they're not going to, and two, they're stuck with Rodgers next season. Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. So you either bring in a completely new regime for 1 year of Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, you're stuck with Aaron Rodgers for a year.
Playoff mandate too.
Yeah, with a playoff mandate, exactly, essentially. Or you just stick it out with this regime. If it works next season, great. If it doesn't, which I don't want to put any predictions out there, but there's a lot that's working against it for working next season, then you fire everyone. And then it's a new regime. And that would suck. And I'd feel really bad for Robert Saleh because I don't think he deserves this. And I think I would like to see him get another shot as a head coach in this league if it doesn't work out with the Jets. But hey, man, you got to win games in the NFL, and they're not winning games. And you could blame Joe Douglas, you can blame Robert Saleh. Ultimately, it falls on everyone. And I get the urge to want to blow it up now, but unfortunately, this is how it is. And it's going to be like this for the rest of the season, and they're going to run it back with a very similar team next year.
Steven again says, we'll be interesting to see how JD handles the draft, looking like it's a top 10 or maybe top 5 pick. If I had to bet right now, 100%, I think they're going to trade down.
Really?
Obviously, losing the pick from Rodgers. And I think they're going to say, I genuinely think their reason is going to be, we have a good roster. Aaron Rodgers got hurt, number one. Our offensive line, number one, all got hurt. And then our depth all got hurt. Like, I think they're going to lean on that. Because defensively, they don't need to touch it. The defense, I know Jordan Whitehead is not very good, and he kind of stinks. But, like, you can't have 11 above-average players all on one defense. Like,
whoa. Hold on. Whoa. Don't say that Jordan Whitehead stinks. He's going to quote tweet you. He's going to call you out on Twitter. Don't do that.
Oh, don't give up 8 touchdowns, and I won't do that then, Jordan.
He's totally going to find my tweet. I know it's happening.
Generally, like, if the Jets didn't pick a single defensive player, I'm fine in this draft. Like, I think they really think the roster 1 to 53 is really good. What we need are just reinforcements at a bunch of key areas. So we don't need to spend the 7th pick on a lineman. We can trade down, get the 15th pick on a lineman, maybe get a second back, get a receiver, just go lineman, receiver, lineman, receiver. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't hate that strategy. That's what I would do, but I'm not Joe Douglas, and I think the Jets might be worse off for that.
I think it's going to depend on how they view this offensive tackle class, because right now I feel like the general consensus, I mean, you could argue there's a few other guys out there like Mims from Georgia and stuff, but I feel like the general consensus is that there are 2 top tackles in this class. Joe Alt from Notre Dame, Olu Fashanu from Penn State. So there's a couple of tackles up there that I feel like if you have the chance to draft them, I'm not sure the Jets are going to pass that up, because I'm looking at that free agent class of tackles. It's not good. And not that it ever is good, because rarely do you see top-level tackles hit the open market, but it's not good. And realistically, right now, you might need 2 new offensive tackles this offseason. I think there's a decent chance they bring back Becton, partially because he has developed such a friendship with Aaron Rodgers. I can totally see Aaron Rodgers being like, hey.
No, I don't want to hear about friendships anymore.
I saw somebody joke about it on Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, you're right. We are literally seeing a new Aaron Rodgers guy develop in front of us, and it might be Mekhi Becton. That said, even
what kind of evil succubus seductive spell does he have on people?
Well, that's what happens when you
surrender. If he comes to shake your hand, turn and run.
No, why would you? You've got a guaranteed job in the NFL for life or at least as long as he's here. If you do that,
how does that help me though? It helps you. How does it help me?
I'm saying for them it makes sense. For us, no. But I will say in like ignoring the Rodgers factor, it does make some sense. Now I don't think they're going to give him a long-term extension, but I can totally see a short-term deal for Mekhi Becton. It may be a franchise tag, although that would be very expensive. I'm not sure they would do that. If they tagged him, it would be like when the Jags tagged Cam Robinson, where it's like, all right, this guy clearly does not deserve what he's being paid, but it was either this or he's going to probably get some long-term extension from another team. I don't think with because with Becton, he has the injury issue. I don't think any team is going to give him a long-term extension. So I think realistically, he's looking at a 1 or 2 2-year prove it deal, or he gets tagged. And I can see them bringing him back and then drafting a top tackle. Because I don't know what other ways there are to improve the offensive tackle position this offseason. But I can see them trading down. I think right now I would expect them to stay put and draft the tackle, but they do need more picks. They only have 5, so it makes sense.
Brian in chat, if the Texans took Sauce over Derek Stingley, not only is Joe Douglas fired after 22, there's a good chance he never works again. I mean, I will say this, like, because literally the 2022 draft class is literally the only good class he's had. And obviously Sauce, whoop-de-doo, amazing pick, but also Matt Millen picked Calvin Johnson. So, like, sometimes guys get a little lucky here.
I would say that, I mean, like, obviously, yes, that is the only good class he's had, but damn, is that a great class. I don't know if I agree with that, because even aside from the Sauce pick, like, Garrett Wilson at 10 was an amazing pick. Jermaine Johnson, trading back into the first round to get him in that same class, that looks like an awesome move. Breece Hall in the second round, I know he struggled the last few weeks. That's still a great move. I still think that's a great class even without Sauce Gardner, but obviously with Sauce, it makes it what it is. Also, I don't think he wouldn't have a job in the NFL. Howie Roseman would give him a call. Eric DeCosta and Ozzie Newsome would give him a call. So he's got connections. He'd get a job somewhere. I don't know.
Freaking Ryan Grigson is still like, he's like he's like number 2 for the Vikings right now.
Balky. Look at Trent Balky, like in Jacksonville. Like, you could be a bad GM and still get another job. But
and what do you know? You know what happened? Trent Balky got a quarterback. People like Trent Balky now.
Yeah, I know. He's actually like held in high regard in Jacksonville right now. That wasn't in San Francisco.
How that works. Another one from Justice Short. Rodgers would have had Lazard, Wilson, and Uzama. He would have been dominating. I think we would have been 9-3. I mean,
I don't know about dominating, but better, a lot better, probably. Yeah, I agree.
Another one from our new pal Ed here. So the entire team just needs to tolerate management doing nothing at quarterback. GM is 17-45 after the Mac year.
They didn't do nothing. They went out and traded for Aaron Rodgers. That's something. Like, they didn't do nothing.
Yeah, they tried. I mean, nothing at quarterback after Rodgers.
Yes,
yeah,
I agree with that.
That's a problem. But
yes,
like they tried, and then an unprecedented injury happened.
We both 100% agree and fault Joe Douglas a lot for not doing more to not only address the backup quarterback position in the offseason before Rodgers got hurt, but after Rodgers got hurt. But to say they did nothing at quarterback, I mean, they traded for Aaron Rodgers. Like, they tried. Like, they tried. And this is not me trying to defend Joe Douglas. I think he had a very, very bad offseason. But like, you can't say he did nothing at quarterback.
The tough part too is there's going to be more quotes too, because I can't even imagine being on that offense right now. It's got to be so depressing. Because either one of two things is happening. Either you're playing well, like Garrett Wilson. Actually, I thought Laken Tomlinson is, for all of the injuries around him, because the offensive line, sometimes it's hard to have one really good offensive lineman and 4 bad ones. It all kind of seeps into another. I thought he has admirably held his own. So if you're a guy like that, or like a Garrett Wilson, and you're not the problem, and you got to watch everybody else screw up, it's got to be driving Garrett Wilson crazy. Or the other part is, if you are the problem, and you're guys like Tim Boyle or some of the new guys who coming out of the clown car every single week to play on the offensive line, I barely even know what the starting combination is half the time, because they literally are mixing and matching that much. I mean, it's got to be horrible for them too, because they know that they're struggling and they don't have the resources they need to succeed right now. And they got to go out there every week and get pummeled in close games.
And at a certain point too, like, I know they've had so much offensive line turnover, but Keith Carter needs to catch a lot of heat, man, because there are teams. I don't think there's a team that has had the injury luck that the Jets have had this offseason on the offensive line, but there are teams that are pulling guys off the street who do look better and more competent than what the Jets have put out there. It's bad. Like, what offensive lineman on this roster has gotten better throughout the season? I wouldn't even say Joe Tippmann has. I don't know. I don't think any of them have. I think every single player on the offensive line has either met or more than likely fallen short of expectations this season. You could say the same with Becton. You could say the same. I mean, Tomlinson, I know he stayed healthy, and that is by far his best trait, is he can stay healthy, and that is great. And we should continue to count our blessings that he is staying healthy.
And Tippmann moving positions as a rookie,
that doesn't help. No, it doesn't.
I'll give him credit. Like, grading on a curve, I like what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. Joe Tippmann has shown enough to me that I think he will be a long-term starter in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be an all-pro, but I think right now he's a long-term starter, and he should be your week 1 starting center next season. That shouldn't be a debate. But, I mean, we've seen someone like Max Mitchell. He's regressed this season. He's gotten worse. Like, I don't think he was as good as some fans tried to say he was last year, but he showed that he was an NFL caliber tackle. I mean, right now, dude is unplayable. Like, he's completely unplayable. So I think Keith Carter deserves to catch a lot of heat as well. We got a Unfortunate quote here from Garrett Wilson. It makes me sad.
Oh, I don't even. But this is gonna just make me sad. What is it?
It's gonna make you sad because it should, like, he was asked about being open as often as he was and not getting the ball, and unfortunately, he of course, as he does because he's Garrett Wilson, has to blame it on himself. And he said, "I can do a better job of communicating out on the field."
No,
so
no.
What I think Garrett Wilson is saying is that whenever he's open, he should stop in place, do some jumping jacks, stand there, and kind of be like, "Hey, I'm open. Throw to me the ball." That's what he's saying he should do. And I think he's kind of right because maybe they would throw him then. I don't think he'd be open.
People don't like diva wide receivers. Keyshawn Johnson, give me the damn ball. Garrett Wilson, if he did that, I would not fault him. He should do that. I'm advocating for it at this point.
I agree. He has every right to just be so pissed. And he probably is. He was if he had a competent quarterback playing football with him today, he probably goes for 175 yards. That's not exaggeration. There were multiple plays where he's streaking downfield like should be a 60-yard gain. Nope. They don't even see him. Tim Boyle doesn't see him. Trevor Siemian doesn't see him. Whoever it is at quarterback. I feel bad for him.
Ron Plasky has a comment that intrigues me because it seems like he's arguing with himself in this comment. Joe Douglas created this mess. Fair. With Aaron Rodgers, this team wins a few more games. Correct. So many flaws, it's ridiculous. So I'm confused as to where this is going. Like, yes, Douglas created this mess. And if a guy who didn't miss a start for 7 years, didn't have his leg explode, they're in the playoffs, and there's no talk about Douglas's resume or his Robert Saleh. None of this at all.
I understand the sentiment because I do think that Joe Douglas made his bed after the Aaron Rodgers injury. The Aaron Rodgers injury was unfortunate, but he made his bed in the offseason and during the season because there were a lot of flaws with this offense that Rodgers going down just kind of amplified. And then they had opportunities to address those flaws after Rodgers went down, and they didn't. They didn't address any of them. They signed to fix the offensive line. They signed Roger Saffold, who might be missing. I'm not sure if he exists.
Wasn't he supposed to be activated immediately?
You would have thought. They signed Roger Saffold, presumably not just for depth, because they were like, all right, we need a guy who's not just some random practice squad guy to play right guard. Clearly, he's not ready to play, or he's been bad in practice.
It's been a month.
It's been over a month. That signing looks like a complete mess. They signed Trevor Siemian to be their veteran quarterback that would hopefully give them an extra depth piece after Rodgers went down. And presumably, at the time, the presumption was he'd be starting in a few weeks. He still has not started a game, and today is the first time that we've had proof of his existence since he was signed. Like, they made moves to address those positions. Those were their moves. Like, that's it. They didn't make any trades. They didn't make any other additions. That was what they did. So I agree to an extent that Joe Douglas created this mess because while obviously you can't plan for Aaron Rodgers going down, you could have had a better plan at backup quarterback. You could have had a better plan at wide receiver, and you could have addressed those needs after Rodgers went down. They didn't.
I think the point I'm getting at, and maybe this has come across, but because, again, I don't know if I'm ready to fire everybody. I'm certainly not ready to fire Saleh. Hackett, obviously, the fact he's not fired now drives me crazy. And I'm not always like a blame the coordinator guy, but sometimes it is blame the coordinator time, and Hackett has some problems. But the thing I have is, I keep saying it again and again, fired coaches are coaches that should be fired because they're not performing well. Even when they're winning, it's obvious that they're not doing a good job, like Brandon Staley. Or remember Adam Gase, his first year, won 6 in a row at the end. Even when he was winning, you could tell it was not a well-coached team. It was not a good team. It should be very obvious. With Saleh, it's not, because literally the reason Saleh's struggling is not the defense, which he built. The reason that he's getting, they should be fired, is the offense, which A, is not the quarterback he wanted, because he wanted Aaron Rodgers, and he hasn't had a quarterback ever. And B, now he's playing his fourth quarterback in 14 weeks. I struggle to think how that's Saleh's fault. He could have said trade for Kirk Cousins or somebody. He could have been saying that with Joe Douglas every single day. He's not the final say on those things. That's where I feel bad for him. He's almost like a patsy in some regard.
You want to blame Saleh for anything? Blame him for a terrible, terrible offensive coaching staff, because that's what it is. It's an awful offensive coaching staff. And if you want to say, Rodgers brought certain guys in, he brought Hackett in, or he didn't bring Hackett in, but they hired Hackett with the presumption that they would probably trade for Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure that played a factor. You could blame him for a terrible offensive coaching staff, because it is a bad offensive coaching staff. You could blame him for a very conservative mindset that I think holds them back on offense as well. But you can't blame him for the personnel on offense sucking. Like it's just they don't have the personnel and offense, and the offensive coaching staff is just really bad.
Like,
I don't think that's ground.
Rico Gomez, fire everyone and hire who? Give me a name. All right, new rule. Jet Press chat rule. If you say fire everybody, please name an alternative.
I like that rule.
Don't just Ben Johnson's the name that's hot. I'm almost gonna say don't say Ben Johnson because I feel like he's the default answer. And he's he's younger than Rodgers and he's a coordinator and he's been a coordinator for a year and a half.
You have to give a realistic option. Like fire everyone. Okay, hire Ben Johnson. That's not realistic. That's not gonna happen. Like they're not.
Jim Harbaugh, I've heard too. All right, he can't be in either. So
Jim Harbaugh, man, I feel like Woody would go, if it wasn't for Rodgers being here, I could totally see Woody going all in on Harbaugh this offseason. If it was like in a situation where they don't have a plan at quarterback and they're gonna fire everybody, I would not be stunned if Woody was not like, hey, let's bring Jim Harbaugh to New York.
But also Rodgers hates Jim Harbaugh too because of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Rodgers wasn't here, if because Rodgers dictates who the head coach is. Rodgers would never, ever want to work closely with a head coach with as strong of a mind and will. And that's not even a compliment about Jim Harbaugh because I don't particularly like Jim Harbaugh as a person, but Jim Harbaugh rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Aaron Rodgers rubs a lot of people the wrong way. That would not mix. That would not work well.
Justice Short says, fire Hackett and hire me. Boom. I mean, why not at this point?
You're hired. No, Justice, you're hired. You're in.
Armo, all right, actually, fire Hackett, get the Bills' former OC, Ken Dorsey.
Sure, yes.
Sure. All right, that's it. Finally, somebody talking sense.
Yeah. I mean,
actually, Ken Dorsey, people go, oh, the Bills' offense looks better since he got fired. They're doing the exact same stuff. Tendency-wise, they're doing the exact same things.
Yes.
Like Ken Dorsey, legitimately, I think, is a good offensive coordinator. He's not perfect, but I mean, he's better than Hackett. Not a high bar to clear, but he's a lot better than Hackett. And you know what? His offense, I think, would mesh well with Rodgers. It's vertical. It prioritizes getting the ball to your number one guy an inordinate amount. Diggs, Garrett Wilson. Like, that's a legitimate answer, not just hire Jim Harbaugh. I saw people say bring Rex back again. Like, people are just throwing out the craziest things.
Jets Facebook loves Rex Ryan, and I appreciate you guys for that, but man, do you guys love Rex Ryan. He's not coming back to the NFL in 2023, especially not as a head coach. I can guarantee you that. I want to get to a comment here from MTO in chat. This is actually, I like this point, and I wish people talked about it more because he says that Hackett brought in Billy Turner, Randall Cobb, and Alan Lazard, in fairness. Those were as much Rodgers guys as they were his. I do think that Hackett had a significant say in that stuff. And everyone always blames Rodgers. And look, we've done that too. And I think it's fair. I think specifically Randall Cobb is the one where I'm like, all right, this is very clearly Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. I don't think there's any other reason Randall Cobb's on the team. But Billy Turner,
but also Lazard too, though, I feel like even if they didn't have Rodgers or even Hackett, like I feel like they would have gone after him. Like, you're a big guy, they needed a receiver.
I agree. And I think part of that was because of Hackett, because Lazard played in Hackett's system and he was probably like, hey, I can work with this guy. I've worked with him in the past, trust connections in the NFL. I really think Lazard, I think Lazard wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers, and that's partially why he signed with the Jets. But it's also partially because they gave him more guaranteed money than any wide receiver in free agency this offseason. And I don't think any team was topping their deal for Lazard. But I really think that Lazard was a Hackett move as well. Billy Turner was definitely a Hackett move. As much as he might have a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers, no player has played in the NFL with Nathaniel Hackett more than Billy Turner. He even followed him to Denver. So I think that one was more of a Hackett move. Honestly, it comes down to both. Like, both of them had influence in those decisions. But it's not like Aaron Rodgers. Like, I truly don't believe that Aaron Rodgers just sat there and said, hey, sign all these guys, except with Randall Cobb. I do believe he did that with Randall Cobb. But I don't think with Lazard and Billy Turner and even Tim Boyle. I saw people saying Adrian Amos. Adrian Amos was not an Aaron Rodgers move. Adrian Amos was probably the top available safety when Chuck Clark went down. That's why they signed Adrian Amos, and they signed him to a veteran minimum. And not to go on a safety rant real quick, but Adrian Amos is probably the best safety in the Jets roster. I know why they cut him. I get why they did it. I'm happy for him, and I hope he signs on with a contender. But Adrian Amos is probably the best safety in the Jets roster. And I said that this past week, and a lot of people were like, oh, get out of here. No way. You watch Jordan Whitehead play football? Yes, I have. I've watched Jordan Whitehead play football. Jordan Whitehead's allowed twice as many touchdowns as any other safety in football this season. Tony Adams, sure, he'll be here next year. I'm happy he's still out there. He's not had a great season. I don't think he's been awful. I think he's been a better tackler than Jordan Whitehead, which is not saying much. But his coverage has been lacking. He's just overall, I think, had a bad season. Not to go on a safety rant real quick. And Adrian Amos isn't even on the roster anymore. But I just wanted to get out that piece because we haven't gotten to talk about that.
MTO, they traded Elijah Moore and propped up Mecole Hardman as a replacement. He was buried for Cobb. Elijah Moore didn't want to be here. He pretty much requested a trade, and he's got 400 yards in Cleveland this year. I'm not losing sleep over Elijah Moore.
I'm not, but I will say the Hardman thing is absolutely correct.
That drove me crazy. All right, it's one thing if he plays and he sucks. They never tried him.
They traded for Hardman. Yeah, they basically said, "Hey, this is they literally." I'm pretty sure they gave quotes to the media saying that he's a guy that they're hoping to count on this year as a replacement for Elijah Moore.
Expanded role. They said expanded role.
Expanded role. I don't think I'm making it up. I'm pretty sure they specifically said that he can help fill the void that Elijah Moore left. And like you said, MCO, he was buried for Randall Cobb. You're 100% right.
And I just have to say this too. We've gone this long without really addressing that because thankfully the chats have behaved themselves and not brought this point up. But I'm just seeing a lot of people now who, Zach Wilson is not all Zach Wilson's fault, huh? This is what the offense looked like with Zach Wilson. The stat lines are the same. The problems are pretty much the same. There's no improvement anywhere. So I just don't want to hear that's the thing that I at least commend. We didn't say Tim Boyle was going to be great.
No one said
Trevor Siemian was going to be great. We said try it because he might be better.
Yeah.
That's what we said.
I don't think either of us said try Tim Boyle.
If
we did, it was out of pure desperation of, well, clearly they're not going to go to Siemian, so you might as well try Tim Boyle. But neither of us thought that Tim Boyle would be a competent quarterback based on anything he has done at any level of football in his career. Nobody thought that.
We wanted Siemian because Wilson's problems were he couldn't get the ball out quick and he was missing reads. Siemian, we didn't really see enough of him to really get an evaluation. He played one quarter for crying out loud, but it seemed like he's been able to do that. And it looked like he kind of was, for a guy who had a week of backup reps, looked like he was doing okay in that area.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted Tim Boyle because he gives you nothing. And
correct.
Again, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again because it drives me crazy. An eighth of the league, 4 teams, some with Rodgers, some without him, believe he's a rosterable player. It's like with the Nathan Peterman thing, apparently there is tangible evidence Nathan Peterman is this insanely great mind who just sucks. He seems like a good third quarterback to have. I don't mind him going around there. But now I've seen Tim Boyle, and Peterman's obviously just very limited. You can see it when he plays. Tim Boyle, there's nothing. There's no, give me one reason. Tim Boyle, I'm not going to say Tim Boyle fans there aren't any, but there's no justification to have him on a team. So saying that it's a win that Zach Wilson is better for him, that's not a win. I think I'm not even joking. Dead serious statement. I think quarterbacks who started in the XFL last year are better than Tim Boyle.
Oh, I agree. Well, again, Tim Boyle is one of the worst college quarterbacks we've seen in a while. Yes, a lot of those guys in the XFL were at least good in college, Jordan Teamu and stuff. Come on, these guys are better.
What was it? Because I know Rodgers. All right, Rodgers didn't know him beforehand, and he didn't probably help him with the Lions signing or the Bears signing or something like that. What is it? Somebody tell me why. I need a straight answer on this thing. It's just driving me crazy. I'm going to turn into the Joker because it just defies logic and sense and football logic. It's like we're in freaking Bizarro World. We're in Hitre, which is Bizarro World's name for the comic book nerds because it's Earth backwards. Get it?
Oh, creative. That's great. The only thing I can think of with Tim, and it's not this is not a defense at all. It's the mental thing with him, like you said. They think he's a basically a glorified quarterbacks coach. That's why I believe he's been on so many teams. That said,
but his knowledge looked bad because the quarterback coach sees the field really well. He doesn't.
I genuinely think he can see the field well. I just think he doesn't know how to play the position. I'm sure when he watches it back, he's like, oh, yeah, I should have done that. But when he's out there, he can't do shit.
I can do that. I can watch the all 22 and go, oh, he had a guy open there and he missed him.
I think it's more than that. But yeah, I understand the sentiment. Look, I'm not arguing that Tim Boyle should be on an NFL roster. I truly believe that after his time with the Jets is done, hopefully after this season, there's a chance he's back next year. You know that. There's a decent chance he's back. But let's just hope it's done after this season. I'm not sure he makes another roster and plays in another professional football game. I'm not just talking NFL. I mean CFL. I mean XFL. I mean USFL. I don't know if he plays in another professional football game. He's that bad. Hold on. I just want
Hold
to.
on.
I know.
Zach Wilson
I'm seeing some of
doesn't
this.
have an arm and lost the game today.
No, hold on.
Were
It's
you
sarcasm.
watching the Raiders game and you got confused?
If you've seen some of his chats, there was one earlier that made me laugh. Here it was. This is all sarcasm. He said O-line was great. Hackett made great calls. Running game was amazing. It's all Zach's fault. It's all sarcasm. Again, and he also says,
thank you. I'm so blinded by rage, I missed the sarcasm. But
and then after this, Boyle threw a dime for an interception. Keep him in there. Again, nobody argued for Tim Boyle, man.
Jesse Bates right in stride, man.
Scrooge, I do appreciate you. This is making me laugh. This is funny. Nobody argued.
I thought it was serious. I didn't catch on. I'm like,
nobody argued for Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle's not an NFL caliber quarterback. Trevor Siemian at least is a track record. Again, if we're gonna go off what we said earlier, Trevor Siemian is a track record. I'll say this right now. I'll say this on the show. I don't think this should be a controversial take. If Trevor Siemian starts next week and he plays like dog shit, I will be the first one to come on here and say that the Jets should start Zach Wilson the next week, because I believe that Zach Wilson is a better option than Tim Boyle. And I'm not sure that anybody can make an argument against that at this stage, because at least he has upside. At least he gives you something. You don't get anything from Tim Boyle. Trevor Siemian, you're hoping he can be competent. If he's not competent, there's no reason to start him, because you don't have the upside of Trevor Siemian. You don't have the mobility. You don't have the escapability, which you really need behind this offensive line. Now, he's more mobile than Tim Boyle, but again, that's not saying much. My dead grandmother might be more mobile than Tim Boyle. That's not saying anything. Okay,
my live grandmother assuredly is. So
there you go. Not to be morbid for a second, but if Trevor Siemian completely shits the bed next week, assuming he does start, which I'm going to just assume he does, maybe he doesn't. If he does, I'll be the first to say, yeah, Zach Wilson should be starting. But you can't tell me that after how bad Zach Wilson had played and how more specifically the offense was, how bad the offense was with Zach Wilson, that it wasn't worth giving a shot to Trevor Siemian. It wasn't worth giving a shot to Tim Boyle. Never argued it was. That was never our argument. But it was worth giving a shot to Trevor Siemian. But yeah, as Brian in chat says here, who cares about next week? I honestly don't. I agree. Who cares about next week? We should be playing Boyle to get a better draft pick. Give Garrett Wilson the rest of the season off if he wants to get a head start on his vacation. Yeah, man. Why not? Why not? I mean, it sucks. Obviously, I know we're being facetious here. Obviously, it's not going to happen. But realistically,
we got a winner comment from our UK guy, Stephen Farrell. Even Tim Boyle's name is boring and crap. He sounds like the guy who worked as a printer cartridge manufacturer for 35 years.
I'm not even lying. I'm currently in an NFL Pick'ems league where there's a guy in our league named Tim Boyle. I don't know who he is, but his name is Tim Boyle. So maybe, hold on. Thinking out loud here for a second. Maybe I could take screenshots of Tim Boyle's name in our chat. There's money on the line. This is a betting league. Maybe I can send screenshots to the NFL and they could do some kind of investigation. And maybe we can get Tim Boyle off the team that way. I'm thinking kind of Calvin Ridley frame him, do something like that. 1,000 IQ play right there.
I mean, some quarterbacks just, pass the name test, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Tim Boyle. Something about I can't envision.
Tim Boyle's a mechanic in Aurora, Colorado. That's what Tim Boyle is.
Tim Boyle's like a CPA is what he is. in Clovis, New Mexico.
Clovis, New Mexico. I don't even know what that is. What is Clovis, New Mexico?
I remember I went to the Grand Canyon once and we drove through a bunch of middle of nowhere towns near Route 66 and stuff like that. And I remember there was this one town, actually it was called Searchlight, Nevada, because we were flying back to Vegas to fly out. And literally, because Vegas is almost in a crater, literally it was like the Old West. You pulled up, there was Main Street, which had a general store, a post office and two other things. There was a plot of land with 20 houses behind it. I'm like, people live here? What the hell?
Tim Boyle lives there. Tim Boyle probably lives there.
that's where he's at. Yeah. I think that's enough. Now that we're officially delirious, I think
do we want to look ahead at all to next week, or do we want to just go on? Do we want to look ahead and briefly preview the Texans game, or do we want to just say?
All right, let's preview it. The Jets can't score points. CJ Stroud's really good. CJ Stroud's probably going to get 2 touchdowns in this game. The Jets are going to score 6 points, and the Jets are going to lose 17-6. And then Saleh's going to say we're not quite there yet on a quarterback, and he's going to say we're not considering firing Hackett. There, I just saved you. Go. Take your significant other out for a date or something like that. Go apple picking or whatever the hell people do when they don't have to watch football at these times of year. Go do that. Go spend more time with your kids. Like it's something.
I want to disagree, but I can't. We're 56 minutes in, and we haven't said the best offensive stat for the Jets this season, which is that they have more safeties than overall touchdowns in the first quarter this year. That was said on the Fox broadcast. That is an amazing stat. I wanted to point that out. I felt like we couldn't.
I love that they have 7 passing touchdowns and 3 safeties.
Jesus Christ.
It's numbers that you don't even think, like, people go, oh, video game numbers. Like, these numbers are impossible to fudge even in Madden.
What was the second?
You can't do these things.
What was the third safety? So Bryce Huff in the Chiefs game. The Giants game was the other safety, right? Or no, I'm lying. What was the other safety?
It was the Chiefs game was 1.
Yeah, the Chiefs game tonight, and then was there one in the Broncos game or something, or what? There was an Al Wood safety, right? The Al Wood safety. That was Broncos game. That was Broncos game, right?
Yeah.
So that means what week was Broncos? I'm trying to touchdowns to safety.
That was week 5. All
right. Okay. So from week 4 to week 5, the Jets had twice as many safeties during that time as they've had touchdowns over the last 5 weeks. Is that correct? Yeah. Yep.
How many passing touchdowns have they had since that safety? Like 2?
From week 4 to week 5, the Jets had 2 safeties. From week 8 to week 13, they've had 1 touchdown.
And it was in garbage time.
And it was in I guess week 9, because they had the 1 touchdown in week 8. So from week 9 to week 13, they've had 1 touchdown, and it was completely garbage time. From week 8 to week 13, they've had 1 non-garbage time offensive touchdown.
How? Oh my God! I'm losing my marbles here.
We gotta bring back the stats from what we do last week. The Jets wrapped.
You gotta cool with that name, man. We're gonna get a claim on here.
we're gonna get banned by YouTube for our Jets award show. Thank you. I wanted to say the name again. Anyway, yeah, I think you're right. That's a good preview for Texans. I can't disagree with that. I want to disagree with anything or with something you said, but I can't. I completely agree. I think you're spot on.
It's a shame because I like watching Stroud and this offense. Like Stroud and the offense versus this defense will genuinely be really fun to watch. Like,
really?
Again, I feel like a lot of people actually just don't like football. They just like talking about quarterbacks. But like, if you actually like football, CJ Stroud and that offense against that defense schematically, even without Tank Dell, who fortunately broke his leg, we feel bad for Tank Dell, but
that's awful.
Yeah, but even without that, that's going to be such a fun matchup. I can't even enjoy that because I know what the other end's going to be. Will Anderson's going to have 14 sacks.
So I guess rooting guide moving forward, rooting for the Giants, rooting for the Bears, rooting for Washington, the Commanders. I guess rooting for the Cardinals.
There's no chance they get number 1, so it's just
right now the Jets would pick 7th. That's where they would pick right now because the Titans lost, but I guess the Jets now have, I guess, for straight the schedule, they pick ahead of the Titans. So that's something, I guess. Root for the Giants, root for the Bears, root for the Commanders. We're back looking at Tankathon. We're back looking at mock drafts. At least it's December, but I guess we were doing that in November too.
By the way, Joe Flacco is 10 of 15 for 114 and a touchdown against the Rams right now.
All right, it's time to call it quits. I'm in the show.
God, this is a sobering experience for all involved.
Yeah, man, this is rough. Hey, first of all, we always appreciate you guys. Even when the Jets are terrible, you guys are still popping in chat and talking Jets with us. You guys probably have so many better things to do. I truly believe that. But thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon, evening with us. Always appreciated. We will continue to talk, unfortunately, about this team. We'll continue to rant. We'll continue to just cope together about this disgrace of an organization that we call the New York Jets.
How do you really feel?
I think I just said it. That's how I feel. But yeah, that's about it, Mike. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so, man. I haven't a tear left to shed.
With that being said, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter at Justin T. Freed. Follow the Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get your podcast. That's Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Overcast, Spotify, all that stuff. Always shout out Overcast. We always got to make sure. Also check us out on YouTube and TikTok. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. You guys know what to do at this point. You've been with us for a while, and we always appreciate it. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and live immediately following every single Jets loss for the remainder of the season. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Freed. That has been Mike Luciano. We will see you guys on Wednesday.
I'd say welcome to hell, but I feel like Jets fans have been there for a while, man. This is fun times for the Jets.